People's Platform.
Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another episode of the People's Platform. Joining us this evening is Bhoomi Harendran. She is, of course, a very popular, a well-known human rights activist here in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much, Bhoomi, for taking time off your busy schedule and joining us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me for the third time, I guess.
Bhoomi, let's start off with, fundamental rights that are critical, crucial to the existence of human beings across the world. Now, we see this debate on fundamental rights coming up and then going down again, and then coming up and going down again. Now seems to be another down phase of all of these rights. Let's take particularly the type of rights, a portion of fundamental rights that you advocate for, which is equal rights for all communities in Sri Lanka. Now, there was a discussion of a transgender bill that was being debated in Parliament, or at least debated among the circles of MPs in Parliament. What really happened to this piece of legislation?
I think you mix it up with it. It's not about the transgender bill. Transgender bill is still on the drafting procedure.
Okay.
I think it's about the legalizing the homosexuality.
Okay,
Decriminalizing.
Yes.
I'm sorry. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm being so confused right now because, like, personally, I don't have any source of connections to get information. So, like, here and there we hear stuff. So, right, earlier I heard that it's with the Justice Minister. And then I heard, like, he have passed it to the Parliament by saying that it's need to be debated and, being passed. And now it's sort of blank. I don't know actually where it is. To be very honest.
So, so there are certain laws in Sri Lanka that are there on the books,
Yes.
but are not really implemented. So, with regard to the offences surrounding the homosexual community in Sri Lanka, are these laws really enforced against these communities, even as we speak right now?
Exactly, yes. According to my knowledge, as I have heard and learned, the law is not specifically talking about the homosexuality. Homosexuals. It's not talking about gays. It's not talking about lesbians. It has like sort of general phrases, but these laws have been, forcefully used. Specifically to target the LGBT community. So most of the times, like, since I represent the transgender community, most of the times, since transgender community is so visible in the society, they faced a lot of discriminations and violence by law enforcement and people who are in power of using law.
So, as of today, even while this whole discussion on decriminalizing these matters are ongoing, these laws are still being arbitrarily enforced against various communities above the others.
Yes. I think like all these, Los Injera type campaigns, in the sense like, we are decriminalizing, we are supporting this and that. I think, personally, I believe it's sort of election campaign kind of things, because like lot of things are happening, the community is fighting for it like almost more than 20 years, as I know. So like all these years, politicians, the people who are in power to change these laws were deaf actually and blind. And now suddenly they, seeing all this gender equality, women's empowerment, child protection, equality for all gender identities and sexual orientation, this and that. It's good. At least now they see this.
They recognize it.
Yes, they recognize these areas and platforms. But unfortunately, on seeing and starting with all the music and all the lights and all colorful things, but I don't personally see any way forward from there onwards.
So when it comes to changing these pieces of legislation, of course, it's important to have at least a few parliamentarians that you trust would push these pieces of legislation through Parliament. Is there anyone that you personally trust or the community trusts? Is there anyone of that caliber?
You're asking like...
I'm not asking you to name. I'm not asking you to name who it is.
When it's come to politicians, like we know we can't trust on them.
I don't want to name, but is there absolutely no one that you trust in
From my
Parliament?
personal end, no one.
No one. But there are quite a number of parliamentarians speaking about this, advocating for it, especially in the international fora. There are quite a number of parliamentarians, even young parliamentarians, who are advocating for this. So, so there's no recourse to your cause there, is there? No?
In my personal view, like talking is the only thing that they have done from the past and up to now. I mean, like if they walked on their talks, we would have, we won't be able to, we are not, we don't have to talk these stuffs, up to now, like most of things have been sorted by this time. If they actually kept their words as what they have given as promises. So unfortunately, what I see is like our politicians are like drums. They have sounds but empty insides. Sorry.
Moving forward, usually when we see these this kind of legislation, at least there is, in Sri Lanka at least, there is a very symbiotic relationship between politicians and certain religious leaders, and sometimes there is a kickback there. We know very recently, just a few years ago, when a book on sexual education was to be introduced to schools across Sri Lanka, several religious leaders came forward and blocked these moves to reform education. So is there a stoppage from that side as far as these legal reforms go? Is there any kickbacks from there?
As far as I know, there's nothing like that. If I mention something about the comprehensive sex education, I personally don't see any connection of helping people to develop their spiritual life and a person learning about himself or herself. I don't see any connection between that. So like that opposition, that thing that they have done against to bring it, it has destroyed a lot of things, like if a kid can have that comprehensive sex education part, it would have been helped for that kid to shape that kid's life and future, because sexuality is like more than 90% of a person's life. It's not about the act. When we are talking about, when we hear the word called sexual education or the word called sex, people think about the action. But like I would like to say, like, please grow up. There are like a lot of things more than the sex act. So yes, for now I haven't seen any opposition from the religious leaders for the decriminalization.
So moving forward, Bhoomi, usually, like you said, when it comes to progressive legislation, progressive reforms, there is a lot of talk around it. And as you yourself quite rightly said, the community has been demanding these, or fighting for these reforms for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So what's next, really? Do you just keep on continuing the fight? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel from where you stand right now?
Beliefs and, like, dream and hopes. That's the basic foundation for a person to have keep living, actually. It's sort of a hope that, we all dreaming. That dreams keep ourselves alive. So I think I personally keep fighting. When I came into the show, to the field. The thing that I have, the oath that I have given to myself is that I'm not let the next generation or my generation people to feel and go through the same bad situations, let's say, that I have gone through. So I still keep my oath, and I always keep the word. So I'm just keep working on it until it becomes a reality.
But on the ground, Bhoomi, what really is happening to make these reforms a reality? You said that the transgender equality bill is still in the draft stage, and then this decriminalization is currently stalled in Parliament. What's happening on the ground, really?
I think actually people, I mean, the people who are in power or in decision-making positions haven't seen people's real needs. They just will focus on the requirements and issues which will, raise their popularity. They will focus on the issues and they will talk about the issues which gives more vote for them, which gives the security or to secure their seats. They will focus on that kind of issues. So they think focusing on LGBT issues, focusing on gender and sexual orientation, gender identities and sexual orientations, equality will decrease their amount of votes.
Will decrease their votes?
Yeah, obviously. So our previous leaders have said, we don't support for decriminalization, this and that on stages in public ways, and have said and thrown very insultive words in front of huge audience. So they think that saying that kind of thing will grab a lot of attention and that will make them win. So yeah, I still believe that universe or God or whoever up there will open politicians' eyes.
So usually we see, promises for reforms, and most of the meaningful reforms in Sri Lanka usually comes right before an election or immediately after an election. So is there any additional push these days, because there's a very important election coming up, and we saw the LGBTQI community also very deeply involved in the Aragalaya movement and all those people's uprisings that took place during the past few years. So is there an additional push from there to get these reforms through, at least in the run-up to the election or immediately after the election?
Yeah, obviously to get some loans. I can't remember the name. We as a country got an international loan, right? So to get the loan, they had to show something.
Conditions.
Yes, because from the very beginning, decriminalization was a demand from a lot of international platforms, International Human Rights Council and all. So yeah, obviously to grab a lot of international attention and say that we are very sensitive country which focus on each and every person's human rights, and we are protecting dignity. So the answer is on your question itself. It's everything comes before an election or after an election, or when we have to apply for a loan, international loan as a country. So they will do all these fancy shows and fool the community, and again the promises and all these shows will fade away after the things they have got done what they want.
So in your view, these reforms are not going to come around anytime soon, are they?
I don't know. Let's hope for the best. I think it's really sad because to make the society and so-called leaders realize that we are also part of this society and we can contribute to country's betterment. Like, we have to do so much. We have to do so much to prove that we are humans. We have to do so much sacrifices and amendments, adjustments in our life to say that I am a human being. I also have the same blood. I also breathe oxygen. I also a very productive person to the society. Please include us. We have to keep begging. We have to keep like put lot of efforts to prove ourselves, which is like very exhausting, and that's unfortunate.
And the legal structure of Sri Lanka doesn't really assist you in any way, does it?
Nope. I mean, like, people using sort of loopholes through the law actually to torture people, I believe. So that's a really sad part. I think it's not only for I mean, we have very strong child protection laws in Sri Lanka, which is not happening.
It's not being implemented.
Yeah, which is not like practically happening in the society. I mean, like, if you just walk out to the road and see like how many kids are begging on the streets without go to schools. It's a mafia. I mean, we have strong laws. I recently started studying on child protection, but like I have seen like very strong sentences on that book. Like, but I was like, oh wow, like we have very strong, laws. But where are they when it's come to the practical life? Blind.
So when it comes to equal rights for members of the LGBTQI community, do you think that even though, let's say prospectively, hopefully, like you said, these pieces of legislation come through, these reforms come through, either in the immediate run-up to the election or immediately after the election, but do you think that will solve the problem?
No. The real battle will start after that. Because I think, personally, what I believe, laws, policies can be changed. But what actually challenges to change the people's attitude. Because even though there are like sensitive people who do their duties sincerely, are very good people. Actually, we have associated with, we have got support from some police department members. There are some sensitive lawyers, judges. Even within the parliament, I have seen like sensitive ministers, MPs, and like there are people everywhere. But there are people who have like bad attitude, who can use anything for their advantage and torture people. So it's not only the law, actually people's attitudes as well.
So that battle will only start once the laws are passed, or?
It's still, I mean, it's an ongoing battle. I mean, like, I don't know, it's almost 14 years for my service in this field. But I think like all these 14 years, what I have done is like try to change the people's attitude. I think I have succeeded to a certain extent. But I don't think like I managed to change everyone's attitude, because people have a right to have their personal opinions. So I think it's an ongoing battle.
So when you speak of these injustices that are affecting certain communities overwhelmingly than other communities in Sri Lanka, there are multiple avenues that you can go to seek some sort of recourse. For example, maybe the Human Rights Commission. Are those institutional frameworks also not really where you would like it to be? Is there no recourse for members of the community there even?
In Sri Lankan Human Rights Commission doing a great job. I don't say no, because we are closely working with the Human Rights Commission, and they are very flexible, and they are just, we recently had a meeting with a lot of law enforcement entities, including HRSL. So actually they do their work, but even though for them, I think there is a sort of limitations or a place, I mean, the level that they can go, right, up to. So I think it's somewhere stuck where we all know where it is. So like even though as civil society organizations, as Human Rights Commission, even though if it's law enforcement something, let's say, we can only push to a certain level. So it's you know, it's on the politician's hand who is in the Diyavan now, middle of the Diyavan now.
So as far as, you know, electing certain politicians who will bring about these reforms, my final question to you, is there anything specific, any programs that you you as an activist or the organizations that you work with are, you know, carrying out to try and find who these change bringers could be, and maybe, you know, help them along their campaign so that they can bring these reforms?
I have heard like a lot of sweet words during past few months from some politicians. They were saying this and that, but let's see who's. I mean, the very main question that I was asked from those politicians, like, why you have to wait until you are coming to that power handling state or stage to support another community. I mean, you are a politician. You have some powers to some sort of extent. You can push things. You can support things. Like show your actions. I mean, show your actions. So like even like I can tell you some stuff, but if my action don't speaks louder than my words, I mean, like what kind of a thing that I can give you as an assurance of my words. So in that case, like we have seen like a lot of politicians are giving so many promises and stuff, but I don't know, no one impressed me yet.
No one impressed you yet?
No. Because I really like the people who actually walk on that talk.
Thank you very much, Bhoomi Harendran, human rights activist, for joining us on this program despite your busy schedule. And thank you very much again to all our viewers out there for tuning into another episode of the People's Platform, where we discuss issues that go to the core of the general public here in Sri Lanka. Like I said, an election is coming around, and of course it's in everybody's best interest that the leaders that all Sri Lankans want, that would bring...
Can I add like small...
Definitely, Bhoomi.
So I actually would like to ask you guys, whoever watching this, whenever we are going to a shop to buy clothes or something, we check the quality, we check everything before we buy it, because we want the justice for the a single rupee that we are spending, right? So why don't you apply the same theory for the politicians when you are electing someone, because like you are giving a huge responsibility to them. Please this time when you vote someone, make sure that you evaluate the person, the capacity, the knowledge and efficiency and the productivity that person can brings in. Please make sure, because like you are handling a huge responsibility to someone to make decisions on behalf of you. So please use your this. And
I think with all the you know, hustling around to just make ends meet, with the increasing in the cost of living and all that, it's equally important to put in time to making your decision, to put in time to looking at what these people are speaking of, to looking at their past records, to technically studying the person, studying the science before we vote. And I do understand that a lot of people don't really have time for this, but we see how 75 years of not having time for this has nullified all the hard work that we have done to make our lives better, and brought us to the point that we're in right now. Well, with that, we will wrap up the People's Platform for this evening. Thank you very much for tuning in. Take care and God bless.